the search warrant on the unit, the Santa Fe unit.
Okay. Can you describe for the jury briefly the manner in which a search warrant is served on the unit?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
What was your responsibility in association with the execution of that search warrant?
Documentation, photographing the unit, and collection of any evidence.
Your Honor, at this time the state moves to admit previously agreed to exhibits 264. Yes, Your Honor.
And since they are new and there's no general description, tell me what 264 generally is. Is there going to be, Mr. Day, let me inquire first, or Mr. Clark, will there be any objections, or these have been discussed between the parties?
They have been discussed, Your Honor, time of objection.
Go ahead and proceed and just give me a general indication of what it is. I'm assuming they're going to be photographs.
They are, Your Honor.
And 264 is a photograph of what?
Of the rear of a Ford Explorer police unit. 265 is the hatch of the SUV open.
And you are saying hatch?
Hatch, yes, Your Honor. 266 is a shotgun secured inside the passenger compartment of the SUV. 267 is ammunition inside the SUV. 268 is AR-15 case inside SUV. 269 is short-barreled AR-15. 270 is inside cargo area of AR-15, correction, of SUV. And 271 is close-up pistol box, Smith & Wesson.
All right, since they are without objection, the court is going to admit into evidence states exhibits 264 through 271, all of them being photographs as described by Mr. Myers for the record. Go ahead and proceed with your direct examination, Ms. Carvajal.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Carvajal, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 264 for identification. Did you take this photograph?
Yes, sir.
What does it show?
The rear of the unit, the Santa Fe unit, Ford Explorer.
Is there any, for identification purposes, why do you take this photograph from that angle?
To identify the license plate.
Is it shown clearly in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
Showing you State's Exhibit 265. What are we seeing in there?
This is the rear of the, what I call the hatchback to the SUV.
And why would you take a photograph at this stage?
I was simply taking overalls of the unit in entirety.
Does a photograph of this nature show the original condition of everything that's inside this cargo area?
Yes, sir.
Before the search begins?
Yes, sir.
Showing you State's Exhibit 266. What is that?
It's the firearm or the rifle that was in the front seat of the unit.
Okay. Is it secured in some type of a rack?
Yes, sir.
Is that normal for police units?
Yes, sir.
Showing you State's Exhibit 267. What are we seeing here?
The ammunition that was in the hatchback of the unit as well.
Are there different types of ammunition displayed?
Yes, sir.
Different calibers,
Yes, sir.
ammunition that would be associated with pistols and rifles, correct?
Correct, sir.
Showing you State's Exhibit 268. What are we seeing here?
As we're pulling out items from the hatchback, it's the rifle case.
Showing you State's Exhibit 269. What do we see here?
It's the rifle that was inside the black case.
Were you able to learn who was the operator of the vehicle that you were executing the search warrant on, that search warrant was being executed on?
Yes,
Who was that?
Tai Chan.
Showing you State's Exhibit 270. And what are we seeing here?
It's still the inventory of the rear of the hatchback of the unit. As we're pulling items out, I'm photographing.
What is this?
I believe it's ammunition, sir, but it kind of blurry.
It's hard to see. I'll take a chance and blow it up.
Correction, it's a box to a firearm.
State's Exhibit 271. Is that what we saw in the previous photograph?
Yes, sir, it's a close-up.
What other actions did you take in association with this event?
That concludes my participation that day on the unit.
That day, okay. Did you go back to the hotel at a different day?
The following day, sir,
Okay. And when you went there, what did you do?
I was asked to meet with investigators in room number 711.
Okay.
They were there to retrieve shrapnel.
Okay. Shrapnel from where?
The air deck to the air conditioning vent area.
Okay. And this was in the overhead, is that correct?
Right.
Who else was there?
Sergeant Mullins, Lieutenant Clements, amongst others. Those two were the main ones.
Okay. And did you, can you tell the jury briefly what happened as you were there that you saw?
Okay. Upon arrival, I met with the officers, investigators, and I was informed that they were gonna retrieve shrapnel from the air deck area. Simply, I was to photograph as they cut out the sheetrock and further retrieve the shrapnel from the air deck, and I photographed that when they retrieved it.
Okay. Did that conclude your activities on the 7th floor?
On the 7th floor, yes, sir.
Okay. And if I could have a moment, John?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Price.
Ask the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Clark, cross-examination, Ms. Cabello.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir.
All right, so as an evidence technician, obviously your job is to document evidence, right?
Correct.
And you're going to photograph things, you're going to document, which includes photographs and collection of evidence and such, right?
Correct.
And the purpose is to preserve things as close as you can in their original state so that there's no doubt how things were at the time of the incident, right?
Correct.
All right, so let's talk about this, the Ford Explorer for a moment. Now, you were asked to execute a search warrant on that Ford Explorer, correct?
I was there to support the investigators that were going to execute.
You were, I'm sorry, I misphrased that. Or you were there to document the execution of the search warrant on that Ford Explorer, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so when the Ford Explorer was opened, it was done pursuant to a warrant, right? They were executing a warrant, you were photographing it?
Yes, sir.
All right, and so you were just taking photos. I mean, Mr. Byers showed you a series of photographs of a shotgun, right?
Yes, sir.
And of an AR-15, right?
Yes, sir.
And multiple boxes of ammunition, right?
Correct.
And you're not offering any testimony whatsoever that those weapons were moved from one location to another, right?
No, sir.
As far as you know, you were photographing a rifle, which I think is either a Mossberg or an 870, right, the shotgun, and then the AR-15. You were photographing them secured in the vehicle, and you don't have any evidence that they had been moved at any time, right?
No, sir.
Okay. Same with the ammunition, right? You were photographing it in its original state in the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you said you found out later who the operator of the vehicle was, you said it was Mr. Chan, right? Is that what your testimony was?
Yes, sir.
But actually, what you found out was that Mr. Chan and Mr. Martin, that was their assigned vehicle for a transport that they'd done of a prisoner, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the vehicle wasn't somehow just belonged to Mr. Chan. It was a Santa Fe County Sheriff's Unit, right?
Yes, sir.
And it was, you learned it had been assigned for the sole purpose, the specific purpose of this transport, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. When you went the following day to room 711 to document the retrieval of shrapnel, as you say, right?
Yes, sir.
That was the specific reason for your call out?
That's correct.
All right, and you watched the deputies cut out the piece of sheetrock?
The officers, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, the officers. And you made an observation that the hole had already been patched?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then you watched them take the shrapnel or whatever it turned out to be from the duct, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're not being called upon to indicate or to offer testimony about the angle of the shot or anything like that, only that you retrieved what appeared to be fragments of a projectile from the ceiling by the duct, right?
Correct.
That's it. And then after you made those photographs, did you have any other involvement as an evidence technician?
I was advised to go to the stairway wall area of floor number 4,
Okay.
where there was a red substance on the wall.
And this was in the stairwell, right?
On the wall next to the door that leads to the stairway.
Okay. And did you ever learn that Mr. Chan had been taken into custody by sheriff's deputies in that stairwell?
Yes.
Yeah. And was that swab for testing that you're aware of?
Was the swab tested?
Yeah.
Not to the best of my knowledge, sir.
Okay. In your years as an evidence technician, as a person charged with collecting evidence, have you encountered blood before?
Yes, sir.
A fairly regular occurrence, right?
Yes, sir.
And so when asked, if I ask you in the course of your experience, are you able to make an observation as to the character of that substance in the stairwell? I think you would agree with me that it looked like blood, right?
Red substance.
Which is consistent in your experience with blood, right?
Yes, sir.
And it looked like it was smeared, right?
Yes, sir.
It didn't appear to be a spatter of either low or medium or high velocity. It appeared to be a transfer or a smear, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you made a notation of that substance, right?
Correct.
And you took the photograph of it.
Yes, sir.
But you don't have the authority, or were you ever tasked with having things tested, right?
No, sir.
That's somebody else's job description, right?
That is correct.
And so whether or not that substance, which appeared to be consistent with blood, was ever tested is beyond your purview in this case, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. No further. Pass the witness.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Byers, is there any redirect examination?
There is one.
Go ahead and proceed.
Ms. Carbajal, Mr. Clark asked you about something on the 4th floor in the stairwell. I mean, showing you State's Exhibit 276, this is the extreme close-up. Is that the same stain?
Yes, sir.
Does it show any of the normal characteristics of low-velocity spatter? Does it look like a blood drop?
Objection. I don't believe it's being purposes.
I understand the objection. It's not a speaking objection. Again, I'm going to sustain the objection. Ms. Carvajal testified earlier that she has no training in this area.
Have you seen a blood drop before?
I have seen a blood drop before, sir.
Is this one of those?
To me, it looked like a smear.
I'm sorry?
It looked like a smear to me.
Does it look like a blood drop?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Clark, is there any agreed cross-examination?
Very.
Ma'am, Mr. Byers asked you if that could have been consistent with automatic transmission fluid, maybe? And you said yes, the color. I think you said maybe, right?
That's correct.
Is there any evidence that there was a vehicle with a leaky transmission on the landing of the 4th floor?
No, sir.
Okay. And he asked you if it could have been pomegranate juice, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of any evidence that someone with messy drinking habits was consuming pomegranate juice on the landing of the 4th floor?
No, sir.
No. And when you were in the stairwell, you made the observation that to get from the 7th floor to the 1st floor, you had to pass the 4th floor landing, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Does the jury have any questions of this witness? Mr. Byers and Mr. Clark and Ms. Carvajal be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Carvajal, thank you for your testimony. Excuse me, Mr.
Yes,
Byers.
Your Honor.
Ms. Carvajal, thank you very much for your testimony this morning. You have no further responsibilities in this trial.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Detective Ricky Bardwell.
Thank you. Detective Bardwell, good morning. Join us here at the witness chair, please. Detective Bardwell, let me ask you to please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you. Take your seat and make yourself comfortable. And again, you can adjust the microphone to whatever level you need. Why don't you begin this morning by giving us your full and complete name, the spelling of your last name, and identifying with whom you are currently affiliated.
Yes, Ricky Bardwell, B-A-R-D-W-E-L-L, and I'm with the Las Cruces Police Department.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Byers, you can commence with your direct examination of Detective Bardwell.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Bardwell, did you respond to the Hotel Encanto on October 27th into the 28th of 2014?
I did.
And when you did, what were your duties?
At the time on that week, I was primary on-call detective for that week. I was the first responding detective.
Okay. So once you arrived, was it your responsibility to essentially commence the investigation, as it were?
Yes, sir.
Did you, as a result of that, did you interview a number of witnesses?
Yes, sir, I did.
Now, whenever you first arrived at the scene, did you make contact with anyone and learn anything about a bomb?
Yes, sir. That was information received from the sergeants that were on scene relaying information to us.
What did you do with that information?
At that time, myself and Detective Martinez, who were conducting the investigation, then asked for the assistance of University Police Department since they had a bomb dog.
Okay. And do you know whether or not an explosive device was ever identified or located inside Hotel Encanto?
As far as I'm concerned, there was not.
Now, did you also have occasion to do follow-up investigation away from Hotel Encanto?
Yes, sir.
Did that involve going to different eating establishments and bars?
Yes, sir.
What types of evidence did you recover from there?
I did receive some statements from employees and then also receipts and a video as well.
Okay. And the receipt was from where?
Hooters and Dublin's.
Hooters and Dublin's?
Yes, sir.
And you took statements, without saying what anyone said, you took statements from whom that were associated with Dublin's?
It was a manager
Okay.
and also the bartender.
Okay. Now, did you also encounter the security guard at the hotel.
Yes, sir.
And his name was Marvin Zamora, I believe, correct?
That's correct, sir.
And did you take a statement from him?
Yes, sir.
Were you also tasked with executing a search warrant on the vehicle that was driven by the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where was that search warrant executed?
There on the premises of Hotel Encanto.
And were items recovered from inside the search warrant?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury the general nature of those items?
It was police equipment, duty gear, ammunition, firearms.
Now, you mentioned switching around over to the bars again. You mentioned Hooters. Were you able to obtain any receipts from Garduño's?
I didn't. I did request them. I believe another detective retrieved them if there were any.
Okay. At some point, did you contact anybody at a restaurant named De La Vegas?
I know we inquired at that restaurant. They were very cooperative. They attempted to obtain video or research the credit card information, but I don't think they found anything.
No video or credit card information from De La Vegas?
No, sir.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead.
Ask the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Clark, cross-examination of Detective Bartle.
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning, sir.
So when you contacted the New Mexico State, the New Mexico the University Police Department to bring their bomb dog, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if they ever deployed the bomb dog?
I believe they did. I didn't actually see it myself. It was a request that was done through the officers on scene.
That would be by separate report someplace?
Yes, sir.
Whoever deployed that dog would if the dog was ever deployed, that's not something you included in your report, right?
That is correct.
And the findings, that's not something you included in your report?
No, sir.
Okay. And whether or not specifically the dog was deployed, if that's not in your report either, is it?
No, sir.
Okay. So you're kind of guessing as to what they did or what they might not have done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fair enough. Now, how long have you been a detective?
Going on 3 years now.
All right. So you would have been kind of a fresh detective, you would have been kind of new to the job as a detective a couple of years ago, right?
No, sir. I was investigations as an investigator for the domestic violence unit, and while I was assigned to that duty, I was taking on-call as well. So I was doing on-call status for years after that.
Oh, okay. So when you were conducting your investigation in this case, you were well seasoned then on interview tactics and the need to ask people to give all the information they might have, things of that sort.
Yes, sir.
Make witnesses as comfortable as they can be when they're writing statements.
Yes, sir.
Make sure they're not either cold or uncomfortable or somehow compromising their ability to give a clear and concise statement to you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so if you notice someone who's giving you a statement is shivering or they're really cold, you're going to take them out of that situation and put them somewhere where they can be more comfortable when they're giving their either written or oral statement to you, correct?
I've never come across that, but I would try to make them as comfortable as possible.
At this night, did you notice that Marvin Zamora was exhibiting either extreme discomfort or he was somehow compromising his ability to give you a fair and, an accurate statement as to what he remembered?
That didn't stand out to me, sir, no.
Okay. Now, the hour was fairly early, right? It was about 6 in the morning or such?
No, sir. I don't know the exact time, but I want to say it's shortly after midnight, 1 o'clock or so.
Did Mr. Zamora appear to be nodding off from lack of sleep?
I didn't see that, sir.
Okay. Did he appear to be able to give you an accurate recollection as to what he saw and what he heard?
I thought so.
Yeah. He didn't appear to be under the influence or something like that, right?
No, sir.
And you asked him to give you all the information that he had, right?
Yes, sir.
Be as complete as he possibly could, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Thank you. Mr. Byers, redirect examination.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the jury have any questions of Detective Bartle? Mr. Byers and Mr. Clark, may Detective Bartle be excused from these proceedings?
You may, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Detective Bartle, thank you very much for your testimony this morning. You have no further responsibilities to the trial. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Your next witness.
State would call forensic scientist Raman Sandhu Kermer.
I'm sorry.
Can we approach?
Yes. Ms. Sandhu Kermer, good morning. Join us over here at the witness chair, would you please? And give us just a moment. Go ahead and approach. Ms. Sandhu Kermer, good morning.
Hi.
Am I pronouncing it properly?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Let me ask you to please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, thank you. Why don't you make yourself comfortable, come up to the microphone, and you can adjust the height of it if you'd like. Why don't you begin this morning by giving us your full and complete name, the spelling of your last name, and with whom you are currently affiliated.
My name is Raman Sandhu Kermer. Last name is spelled as SANDHU-KIRMER, and I am a forensic scientist in the DNA serology section with the New Mexico Department of Public Safety, the Northern Forensics Laboratories.
Thank you. Mr. Prindle, you can commence with your direct examination of Ms. Sandhu.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Hi.
And would you once again tell us where you're currently employed?
I'm with the New Mexico Department of Public Safety, the Northern Forensics Laboratories in the DNA serology section.
And where's that located?
Pardon me?
Where is that located?
It's in Santa Fe.
And how long have you been employed by that agency?
I've been there for about 3.5 years now.
And could you please describe some of your job duties within that agency?
As part of my job, I screen and test the items of evidence that come in. I proceed to be considered for this job. As part of my on-the-job training in-house, I spent almost a year being trained in all the methodologies and technologies that are used in actual casework. I had to pass all the comprehensive written and practical tests and pass these competencies before I was allowed to do independent casework.
And does part of that training include formal education as it relates to DNA analysis?
Yes, sir.
Could you explain in a little more detail, more specifically, how the training is directed towards the DNA analysis?
Well, it's all about DNA analysis. It starts with serology to see if there's the presence of biological fluids like blood, semen, and saliva. And also it goes into very thorough training about all the instruments that we use, all the technologies that are currently in place at the lab. The color of our eyes is, the hair, how tall we are. We get half of it from our mother and half of it from our father. So DNA is very unique to every individual except identical twins. If we think of DNA as a series of numbers, then all of us would have a different serial number. That's how specific it is to every individual other than identical twins.
And could you also explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what forensic testing is and what it involves?
Forensic testing is basically the application of natural sciences like biology, chemistry, physics to the matters of law.
And oftentimes you use DNA in forensic testing as part of forensic testing?
Yes, sir.
And could you give an example of how that might be used?
For example, a case comes in where the evidence from the scene had saliva or blood. Then I will first screen the evidence and do some chemical tests to determine if there was saliva or blood present. I will go ahead and extract the DNA from all the rest of the debris and cells, and this is purified DNA. I will then determine how much DNA is actually present in that item and if it warrants further testing. Once I determine there is enough DNA, I will make copies of specific targeted locations on the DNA. And these are the locations that we study or analyze during DNA testing. I will make millions of copies of those targeted locations and then use an instrument to separate these fragments into as per size. And finally, I will look at the DNA profile that's generated and determine if the person, let me go back a little bit. If I have a known standard, that means DNA that was taken from a person, usually from their cheeks, that is a known standard. So the DNA profile that's generated from the evidence, I will compare that to the known sample and determine if it's a match or no match.
And are there ways, or how do you determine who could have been the source of DNA as it relates to a particular item or items? How are you able to determine that, and what methods do you use in order to attempt to do that?
For determining if the person is a source?
Yes.
That's a two-step process. First is I will analyze the DNA information from the evidence itself, and once that's done, I will look at the known standard or profile from the individual and see if it's a match, if the two profiles could have come from the same person. Once that is done, it's not just enough for me to say it's a match. I have to give an estimate of how unique and how rare this profile is. So I do a statistical calculation, and once it meets the source threshold set by my lab, at that point I can say this person is the source of the DNA.
And could you define for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you mean when you refer to population frequencies?
Population frequencies are the number of times that the information or the alternate form of DNA at a targeted location is present in a specific population. So it's just how often is this form of DNA seen in the population. And in New Mexico, we report the results for the 5 common populations, that is the Caucasian, African American, Hispanic, Apache, and Navajo.
Ms. Adukarma, did your lab receive some items for examination in the Tai Chan case?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall what types of examinations you performed on those items that you received?
For the items received, may I refer to my notes?
Yes, of course. You've been designated as an expert witness. Do you have your notes with you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Do you have a copy of your report?
Yes, sir.
I'll repeat your question. What types of examinations were performed on those items that were received by your lab?
I performed serology and DNA testing.
And upon completion of your examination, did you prepare a report?
Yes, sir.
And is that, you have a copy of that report in front of you?
Yes, I did.
And were all your findings as a result of your examinations contained within that single report?
Yes, they are.
And when you complete a report, is that report reviewed by anybody else at your agency or within your lab?
Absolutely. After I am done preparing the report and of all my testing, it has to go through 2 reviews before it can actually be closed and mailed out to the agency. First is a technical review, and in that another qualified DNA forensic scientist goes through my entire report and the case bench report and goes through to make sure that I followed all the procedures as per our SOPs. I did due diligence, and all of the results that I arrived at were actually consistent with what you would expect to see, and they approve of that. The second is an administrative review, and it's basically a review of all the grammatical or clerical errors that might be. So once these both are done, then the report can leave the lab.
So Ms. Adukarma, let's take a look at your report and have you explain with a little more detail some of your findings to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I'm going to work my way down through the report, maybe not in any specific order. In your report, you indicate there was no DNA detected on items 56 and 79.
That's right.
And referring to your report, could you articulate to the jury what those items were, 56 and 79?
Item 56 was a projectile in a hand towel, and item 79 was a projectile.
And when you use the word projectile, would that be the same, have the same meaning as a layperson may refer to it as a bullet?
Yes, sir.
And so neither one of those items contained any DNA?
Right, no human DNA was detected on those.
And once you made that determination, was there any further testing done on those 2 items?
No, there wasn't.
And before we talk about the next item on the list, I see in your report you use the term quite frequently, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty. What does that mean?
To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty means that, as per the statistical calculations, the DNA profile on the evidence could only have come from the DNA profile it was matched to. And I use this term once it meets the threshold that's set by my laboratory. So once the DNA or the profile is rarer than 1 in 300 billion individuals, I can say statistically that both of these profiles match, and it could have only come from the person it was matched to.
And your report indicates that Mr. Chan, the defendant, is the source of the DNA profile on several items. The
Yes,
first
sir.
one that you indicate that he is the source of the DNA profile is item 32A. What was item 232A?
Item 32A was the stain on the leg of the blue jeans.
And were you able to determine what that stain contained?
Yes, I did do serology testing on that stain, and blood was indicated on item 32A.
And also Mr. Chan's DNA?
Yes, sir.
And was the blood the source of the analysis for the DNA profile?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall, you don't have any exhibits that you can be displaying with the testimony. I think that would help the jury. We have so many photographs and so many photographs, I believe, of Mr. Chan.
Could you have a second?
Yes, go ahead. Why don't we do this? Let's take a few minutes. Let's go ahead and take a recess. It's 10:30 right now. I apologize to the witness for disrupting the testimony. This will allow us, I'd like for there to be some exhibits that are being shown to you while the testimony is being provided, because I believe that it will be easier to follow, easier to comprehend. So in fairness to the parties, let's give them a few minutes to see if maybe we can organize those exhibits as they may correlate to the witness's testimony. So let's go ahead and take our mid-morning break. Thank you. So let's take about 15 minutes, but try not to go beyond that. Again, I'm a little bit concerned the volume of testimony that may come from this witness, and because I'm not unaware of what the testimony will be or how extensive it is. But we started out with 2 items that didn't have the DNA. Now we're switching over to items that may have DNA or a combination. So I want to make sure that the jury is able to keep up with exactly what the testimony and what items it's being directed to.
That's fine.
So let's see if we can coordinate that. You certainly can step away from the witness chair.
And I can leave my
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you very much. All right, we're in a short recess.